this issue a lot. The number one indicator of a kid's success is resilience, right? So last night on Light Night, I told you a little bit that we had this hysterical interview that Diane Sawyer did with Louis C.K. He's that incredibly profane, very raunchy comedian. But I kind of see him as like a philosopher king. And he said, you know, quote, "I don't wish for people to have all their dreams come true. I wish them to be okay with the fact that they don't. You can go out into the world not letting it stop you. And when things don't go your way, that is when you are unstoppable." You know what I mean? There's nothing that can beat you as long as when somebody goes, "No, you can't do that. You can't have that. You can't be that." Then you go, "Okay, no? Well, I'll find another way. Thanks anyway." In his view, thanks anyway is the key to success. And at the same time, I look at you folks, you're all in black tie, you're looking very fine to me. And I'm thinking you're clearly enjoying a level of success in your chosen fields, right? And what I would challenge all of you to stop and think about is that in turn, you not be those professors responding to that type of email that comes into your email box, right? Because we all have those subtle biases built into the way that we filter the world around us, right? Just a few weeks ago, ABC News, I don't know, Andy, if you had this, but our Outlook email system had a new system upgrade, right? And what it did was it allowed you to see your colleague's employee photo in the corner of the email. Do you guys have this? Is this just me? Oh my God, it's humiliating, right? First of all, who looks good in their employee photo? Nobody. Right? Well, do you? Yeah, he said, actually, I do. Okay, you're good. Okay. You're looking good tonight, so that's good. That's all right, yeah. But come on, most of us look like it's a mugshot at 2 a.m., right? And not only that, for our Outlook, it's from the day that you began employment. So for me, it was like 25 years ago. I'm like 18 years old, okay? And so I can barely get any work done because I'm too busy laughing at people's photo IDs. But then it occurred to me that some of those same biases that those professors are having when those emails come into their email box are going on and ricocheting around in my own head, right? It's amplified in that photo. Forget the name, right? We have super smart, tons of reporters at the State Department, at the Pentagon, and before they were anonymous names, and I just took the data that they were bringing in completely free of what they looked like. But suddenly I was like, oh my God, okay. He was like a totally young kid. I'm not going to listen to that kid's idea, or I'm not going to listen. And then I saw myself filtering out ideas simply because of the source, right? And we all know, based on how many management books have you guys all read, right? We could fill a library of management and leadership books that we've all read. We all know that the best ideas need to surface. We need to create a culture in our corporate environments where every idea is based on merit and not based on the photo of that employee's ID. Are you with me? It sort of reminded me of all those sociological experiments that we've heard about, right? You know, when the symphony orchestra started doing auditions behind the curtain so that the nominating committee couldn't see whether the person who was auditioning was a woman or African American or whatever, that suddenly the rate of minorities and women introduced or accepted went up. It wasn't because the committee was prejudiced per se, but because they have certain biases filtered in, right? Same goes with science prizes. I think one of the highest NIH science prizes, they began to open up to self-nominating instead of relying on professors and researchers to nominate people. When people started self-nominating, the number of women and minorities who won the prizes, forget nominating, who won the prizes went up. And so it's really about sort of closing our eyes to what our biases might be and looking at the world around us. It's important to let everyone flourish and every idea flourish. But this brings me to the next piece of advice, which I say to my kids. I say, okay, you know, boys, this is my life motto. And they're like, Mom, you got a lot of life mottos. But this one is very simple. Don't be a jerk. Right? That's a good life motto. I actually use a profane word, but whatever. Don't be a jerk. Yeah, it's a body part. I can't mention it right here. I might be quoted. But the other day, I was at a very fancy awards lunch in New York City, and Richard Parsons was there, the former chairman, African-American chairman of Time Warner. And he grew up in a different era. And his father said to him when he graduated, and he said, "My father said to me, be the kind of man that other men want to see succeed. So that when you get that promotion and you get that award, everybody feels good for you." And let's face it, you all know the people, the GM, you all know the Chrysler people. Somebody at my table said they all go work for the other places. They go back and forth, right? It's a small world. You guys all know each other. And when one of you succeeds, you want to be the kind of man that everybody in this crowd is going to want to see succeed. And you know what that is? The shorthand for that is, don't be a jerk. I'm just saying. And the next step of that is don't let your own view of yourself and your own self-bias and your own self-prejudice stop your performance, right? There is a great professor at my alma mater at Stanford named Steele. Professor Steele, I can't remember his first name. This is really embarrassing. But he has pioneered an area of psychology known as stereotype threat. Have you ever heard of this? Stereotype threat. And what that means is that your performance is affected by what you think other people think of you, right? Whether it's true or not. So the classic example was black athletes and white athletes. They came up with some like tiddlywinks, project. Like I think it was like a golf, some sort of vague hand-eye, but really not an athletic thing. They told the black athletes and the white athletes the same stereotype before they administered the test. They said, the first time around, they said, this test measures raw athletic ability, genetic athletic talent. And they said that to both the black athletes and the white athletes. And guess what? The black athletes performed better than the white athletes. They did the exact same test, and they said a different thing to the black athletes and the white athletes, but they told them the same thing. They said, this measures pure athletic intelligence. This measures athletic, intuitive IQ. And the white athletes outperformed the black athletes. The threat of the stereotype produced a stress that impacted the performance, right? They did the same thing and replicated it, if you don't believe it, in 5th grade girls' math tests. Girls assume that they're not as good as the boys in math. So before the test, which was some tiddlywinks test, they said to the girls and to the boys, this measures natural math ability, your raw genetic talent for math. And guess what? The boys outperformed the girls. But when they re-administered the test, same like double-blind, blah, 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 whatever testing, this is Stanford, by the way, they scored evenly. So what it tells you is that you can mess with your own head. You can tell yourself that you're not as good. You can buy and believe the stereotype. And what I'm telling you is we don't have to. And we should tell our kids not to. And that is why we as Asians gather and are aware of the fact that the color of our skin can impact what's in our head and eventually impact our performance if we're not careful. So all of that said, we have to, at the end of the day, redefine what success means, in my view, in my humble opinion. I mean, think about it. Asian culture, we are all talking about measures of success and what our parents think and what our neighbors think and all of that. And the truth is that Asian culture measures success by a variety of metrics. Americans then define success by a bunch of, I don't know, flashy cars, big mansions, designer bags, whatever. But as a parent, I'm always fighting sort of like the inner Asian tiger mom messages that are in my head. Don't deny that you feel that way too. How many of your kids have piano lessons? Come on. Versus the American side of me that says, I will never push my child to be the way that my parents pushed me to be. But of course, miraculously, I am the same way. But at the end of the day, we as Asian parents want our kids to be successful lawyers and bankers and engineers, and we really don't want them to be musicians and actors and bohemes, right? So at the end of the day, I became a journalist because I flunked an exam. I grew up in Sunnyvale, and I was in calculus, and I got a 27 out of 100 on my calculus. 27. And that's when I decided that perhaps I should look at some of my other aptitudes. And at the same time is when I scored a near perfect on my political science exam and won the political science prize that Silk told you about. And that's when I turned to the liberal arts. And I became a journalist because my mom said to me, you know, you talk a lot. Look at that Connie Chung lady. You could be like her. And that's what a role model is, right? And so when I became the co-anchor of Nightline, I was thrilled and gratified by the number of emails that I got from young Asian Americans who said to me, it's really nice to see an Asian American face up there. And that meant a lot to me, and it was very gratifying. And I think that it's important as a member of the Korean American, Asian American diaspora here in the United States. You know, I wanted tonight's talk to be about fusion, because at the end of the day, I don't think so much that it's about multiculturalism. It's about sort of taking the best of both cultures and fusing them together and going beyond multicultural. So the metaphor that I use is the hottest, chicest food in New York is called fusion, right? So whether it's fish tacos, you know, in LA food trucks, or a sake teeny, or, you know, whatever blend of flavors that you want to create. Food is an apt metaphor for the kind of fusion that our culture draws its strength from. I married a nice Jewish boy, as Andy told you, and I've learned a lot about scattered cultures, about the fact that Jews, whenever they go to a different country, they sort of graft it into their own historical narrative and build strengths off of that as well. And I think that's what Asian Americans need to do. We need to maintain our cultural heritage and remember what it is that our parents sacrificed so much for to come to this new country, to create opportunities for us, but also to graft onto that the new cultures that we encounter and that we blend with, because at the end of the day, it's fusion that will take us forward into the next century. And every day I think to myself, I never forget that I'm Korean. I'll never forget that I'm always American at first, and really those two are not mutually exclusive. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for inviting me here tonight. I'm thrilled to be here. You're getting on your feet. I'm so honored. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. As the flowers are heading my way, I will tell you that I've been asked by a number of people to say that there's a fabulous band coming, so stay. They're going to play all sorts of classics and new songs and fabulous music, so thank you again so much. This is fabulous. Thank you. This was great. Are we taking a photo? Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you.